And this time, the seminar within this SwePass Work Package 5 here is arranged by RISE. So Jesper Edberg, my colleague, and myself, Tatiana Carpena. So really great to be here and present how we work with Digital Product Passport, but first maybe shortly about who we are as humans. Jesper, please.
Yes, so I'm Jesper Edberg. I'm a colleague of Tatiana working at RISE in Norrköping, where we have 2 units, bio and organic electronics and printed electronics. So I will tell you all about what that means a little bit later and how it connects to Digital Product Passport.
Thank you so much, Jesper. You publish a lot, so it's really worth to check your publicational profiles, which we see on the screen. Yes, thank you so much. And myself, Tatiana, I work as a business developer within sustainability and digitalization, very close to Jesper's teams. And from the beginning, I'm a sustainability expert. I've been working with LCA's techno-economic, social life cycle assessments. So basically data-driven sustainability assessments all my years at RISE. Good to know, maybe we have a RISE LCA network with 60 plus skilled LCA practitioners. And then I also drive the initiative called Circular Business Lab for Electronics, which is closely connected to the DPP topic here, how data can enable circularity. So this is shortly about us, and then shortly about the agenda for this seminar. So thank you so much, Eva, again, for introducing, giving this opportunity to present. Now we continue with the presentation of what do we do within the Digital Product Passport at RISE. And we start with very short information about what RISE is, for those who don't know about it, about our organization. And then Jesper, after I talked about how we organize ourselves within the Digital Product Passport at RISE, Jesper, you will present about printed electronics arena. And also what does it mean having DPP with added value. So stay aware here. Yes. So shortly about RISE, we are a research institute which works very close to industry, but also public sector. And we are on a mission here in Sweden. So we are an independent research institute that has a lot of focus on small and medium companies. And especially this is interesting for the SwePass project, which is a national platform for Digital Product Passport and where we have a lot of small and medium-sized companies. But in particular, RISE mission, as you see on the right in bold, it's to promote sustainable growth in Sweden by creating competitiveness and renewal of the business sector, and at the same time renew the public sector with sustainable and circular innovations. And if you like numbers, so this is one slide about RISE as well. On the left side, we see that we are 50-50 having customer projects and publicly financed projects. So it's very good to know that we have both roles. So we can be as a consultant expert, but we can also do research together with partners in, for example, Vinnova projects, like we do it in SwePass here. We're fourth largest institute in Europe. Jesper and I have 3,298 other colleagues at RISE. And what is unique with us, we could say that it's test and demonstration facilities, as they are called. So different type of equipment where you can, on a lower lab scale or pilot scale, so by upscaling different products and processes to test new innovations. And printed electronic arena is one of such a test and demo facilities, so you will learn about it very soon. And I think we just jump in directly into what we do within the area of DPP at RISE. So for us, it's not only a question about compliance with the ESPR, so eco-design regulation. It's more about creating sustainable and circular business value. And with that, we mean that we want to enable possibilities in organizations to design, prototype especially, and scale digital product passports that do both. They meet the EU requirements for the information traceability in value chain, but also they give real added value in sustainable and sort of circular business models. And this we do through our expertise about DPP on different levels, through knowing about regulations, knowing how to manage DPP data, having technologies, and especially doing real world pilots. So basically prototyping a lot of such solutions. How we are organized right now within the DPP is these 3 boxes, basically. And this is according to what type of request do we get from out there, from small and medium-sized companies and other types of organizations. There are still very many companies who are in the first block. They want to understand what is a DPP and why you need it. Is it a must, or is it something which is nice to have, and so on. And in the second block, it's about building and scaling up DPP. So we get more and more projects about prototyping these solutions on different levels. And the third block is leadership. So basically, if you want to start with DPP work, how you do it in, say, different research projects and with what type of partners. So 3 blocks as today, but we will see how this area will be evolving, and then we may also rethink together with the latest developments. But now I just wanted to shortly visualize for you what these 3 blocks contain. So the first one, what is a DPP and why? Again, pretty much about regulatory readiness. So how we interpret these regulations, which are to some extent out there already in force, but still there are some parts missing. So how you put all this information together and understand what does it mean for your company. And then also we offer help with how you prioritize your products, which products and in which way. And then we work a lot with defining what is this added value about for those organizations who are interested to start with DPP. And because so many people ask, like, how we do it. So I just put 2 examples of, you can call it offerings or ways of working when you really want to just start doing DPP. To make it simple and almost like playful, we have 2 types of solutions here. One is Product Passport and Eco-Design Navigator, where you as a company can imagine, test yourself towards these new requirements by learning what are these requirements and what is the competitive advantage of doing this type of work. And another one is similar, but there you will get, you could say, different supporting tools and with focus on circularity, circular business models and DPP. So how you initiate this type of work in a systemic, structured way. And again, many questions about what it is, why you need it, how to do it. So basically how to start. So we spend a lot of time in this box. In the second box, how to build and scale a DPP, then we come into basically defining the DPP. What is it as a solution? Because it's a complex thing. It's about data along the value chain. It's about how you build this digital solution with right architecture. in order to communicate in between different value chain actors. You need technology, and Eva, in your work package, it's a lot about interoperability, semantics, so all these questions. All systems like humans, they need to cooperate together in order to have this information flowing in the value chains. So here we are pretty much focused on prototyping DPP on different level. It can be technical solutions. So Jesper will touch that related to sustainability, circularity, and also the business perspective through printed and bio-based electronics. What is also popular, it's different types of sensors that can collect information that you would need for DPP. At RISE, we do a lot of scaling up of production processes, and even quantum DPP we're discussing, just for your information, because we have some projects where you build these quantum communication techniques, which is about secure data solutions in the value chains. And there it's quite interesting also how this technology could contribute to DPP. So we are discussing that right now. But also it's about business solutions. So you ask about how to prototype DPP as a service. And how to map this new value chain, or as you can call it, business ecosystem, to make it work as a DPP from raw materials until end of life, and then if you circulate it in different ways. Here, I thought just to include some simple examples from one of our units, so groups who work with customer experience of DPP and building these prototypes that you can feel and smaka, taste what DPP could be for your products in your organization. So it can look something like this, which is from a project about furniture. We see a chair. And this is a DPP prototype where you gather information about this chair, specifically, for example, carbon footprint of this information, the components of this chair, and all the other information around. And everything in one such digital solution that can be seen by different stakeholders. And if you are a furniture producer, you can see one information. As a repairability service, you can see additional information about how to repair this chair and so on. But you share this data pool, but it can happen, of course, that you don't see all information, only information you are eligible for to see. Number 3 is then the third box, it's leadership. And here we define it as actively doing DPP. So research projects or similar projects, and that's we also involve standardization because this is very important to have common language, common understanding of terminology when you work with such complex solutions where also different parts of the solution need to communicate with each other, and policy support. Another question which we get asked often is like, what kind of projects you can have about DPP? And we looked at RISE. It was mostly about value chain projects where different actors, they gathered together. They gathered together around one or another products, and they try to build this prototype of DPP across the value chain. And now, of course, we have SwePass, which is a national platform for digital product passport competences, where we are many partners that get together and try to do some interesting projects together. So standardization, I personally think it's a very important ground for what we do. So we are actively involved in standardization committees, and here in Sweden, it's very active technical committee or committees. So we are really happy about that, and that we can contribute as well. I think I have from my side only 2 citations left. Stina, I think, who is a part of SwePass actually, what she said once upon a time about DPP. Again, something to remember for all of us, that it's not just the compliance, it's about new revenue opportunities for companies and also towards circularity. And we were expressing ourselves in the same way at RISE. I don't know if it's a good tone to citate myself, but what we say here all together is that a product passport without a history is a missed business opportunity. But if you have a product with a digital passport, then it's a story that keeps creating value. And this is where we are thriving. And I think that Jesper will explain more what we do in one of these specific areas related to added value and bio-based organic electronics.
Absolutely. Let me just get to the right slide. There we are. I hope you can see it now.
Yes.
Yes, so once again, I work at a place called the Printed Electronics Arena in Norrköping. So it's our laboratory here at RISE. And my background is in physics and material science. So a lot of what I will talk about today is oriented towards materials, but also and how that connects to the digital product passport. Because at RISE in Norrköping, sustainability of electronics is one of our core focuses. And this also goes into DPP. But a little bit about us. So we are around 30 people here in Norrköping, one of the smaller units. But our 2 units are called bio and organic electronics. We work mainly with new materials. And then we have printed electronics. So then it's about how we can manufacture electronics in new ways. And we also have a very close connection with Linköping University Campus Norrköping. A lot of the research that we are taking to a higher TRL level comes from them. So we have a nice ecosystem here going from very fundamental research to prototypes and then either directly to companies, or we have had a lot of spin-off companies also starting up here in Norrköping. You might not have heard about printed electronics. I don't blame you, not a lot of people have. But basically you can think of it as using printing machines. It can be either screen printing, which is what you use for t-shirt prints, for example, or digital printing like inkjet printing to make electronic circuits. And this we can do on different types of substrates. We usually work on thin and flexible substrate. It can be paper, it could be plastic, or it can even be stretchable materials like TPU. And part of the reason for doing this is to make electronics which is conformable to many different types of surfaces. So you can have it bent around something, or in this case you can fit it on the body and it will have similar elastic properties as the skin in this case. So for wearable electronics. It can also be for automotive industry where you want to minimize the amount of cables and you want everything to be integrated in what's called in-mold electronics. But also cost is an important factor. We can produce electronics in very large scales to very low cost. Rough estimate is usually that you can make it maybe 10 times cheaper than with conventional electronic methods. And like I said, we take things from a very low TRL level. We start already at material level, developing new materials for electronics. Then we can take it to a validation step. We make simple devices. And we also have a pilot line here in Norrköping. So we can take our devices to a pilot scale production. And this is something we have done with a lot of companies working with printed electronics. Responsible Electronics Initiative or innovation is something that we try to get into all our projects. So according to the EU, responsible electronics is electronics that uses sustainable materials. We work a lot with bio-based materials or materials that have a low environmental impact in general, and that can also be easily recycled or even degraded. Energy efficiency is both the energy consumption of the devices during their lifetime, but also the manufacturing methods. I think we have someone who is not muted. Thank you. Yes. Also extending the product life, of course, and also the manufacturer have a certain responsibility for the end of life of the devices. But I would say that it's number one and number two that we are mostly focusing on at printed electronics arena. So the question is, can printed electronics enable responsible and sustainable electronics? And of course, the answer is yes. Here is just one very quick example of how it could look like. It's difficult to put a number on electronics because it's very complex. It depends on what electronics you're talking about. So here is a very focused example. It's about an antenna, which is very relevant here for digital product passport, produced either using conventional PCB methods, so it's the green bar, or by printed electronics. And these are emissions, I think it's carbon dioxide emissions. And you see it's a log scale, so it's actually a huge difference, both when it comes to materials that we're using and the production impact. Less with end of life, but also a significant difference there. And of course, PFAS is something that everyone is talking about. It comes into every sector, including electronics, or maybe especially electronics. A lot of PFAS goes into both the manufacturing processes and to the actual materials that we use in electronics. And when we throw them away, then these materials will leach out over time. So we want to take our responsibility, and we have committed to completely eliminate PFAS from the electronics that we are developing. And not just PFAS, also basically all fossil-based sources. We want to maybe not eliminate, but minimize the amount of fossil-based sources that we're using. So we are trying as much as possible to go away from synthetic fossil-based materials towards bio-based and renewable materials. Just a few examples here. This is from an EU project which is called Hyperlignum, where we are working with printed circuit boards. So it's the electronic cards that goes into basically all products. You have them in your mobile phone, in your computer. They are using pretty hazardous materials today, something called FR4. And here we have shown that you can make them instead on wood, which of course is a very abundant and sustainable material. This is a similar example. Now, instead of wood, it's on paper, but the same principle. Here you can see an antenna coil and different type of electronic components, which could be a DPP label, but in this case, it's a little bit more advanced system, a PCB system. And I also want to mention the Digital Cellulose Center, which I am part of the management of. I'm the scientific leader of Digital Cellulose Center, which is a Swedish competence platform founded by Vinnova and Swedish industry, where we are working exclusively with using bio-based sources for new electronic applications. So if you want to know more about DCC, you can visit digitalcellulosecenter.se. On the material side, we work a lot with different types of sensors, and this is something that we also think connects to DPP, and I will show you why soon. Here's an example of a lignin-based humidity sensor. So lignin is one material used in wood, and we have shown that you can actually have very sensitive humidity or moisture sensors using this material. So we have replaced these synthetic materials with this bio-based source. But not everything can be bio-based, unfortunately. Sometimes you need to work with metals. Metals are really good conductors, but the choice of metals is really important. We work a lot with printed silver in printed electronics, and in printed electronics field in general, silver is the standard material. But silver is very expensive, and also it has some environmental difficulties, especially with nanoparticle silver, which is often the case when you want to print something. So we're also looking into alternative sources. Here's an example of a zinc-based conductive ink. Zinc is a very abundant material. It's pretty much completely non-toxic, both to humans and aquatic environments. And if you leave it in a moist environment, it will eventually just degrade, self-degrade. So maybe not something you will have in electronics you want for 10, 15 years, but if you want to have some short-term electronics, maybe a single-use sensor application, or something that's just going to last for a couple of months, then this could be a good material. In industry, copper is the gold standard, and it's also possible to print copper. And by doing so, you can take away many of the processing steps usually associated with copper in electronics industry, such as chemical etching, which is a very nasty chemical process. And besides printing, you can also use subtractive methods. So this is not from us directly. This is a company called dry phase patterning, which ironically abbreviates to DPP. So sometimes here we get confused when we're talking about digital product passport or dry phase patterning. But it's a method for patterning aluminum on flexible substrates. And here you can see in the top right image that it's actually some antenna structures. So digital product passports is definitely one of the possible applications for this very low cost and scalable production method. And besides the printed part, we also work with conventional electronics, so we can connect these printed devices to through wireless communication to different digital platforms. But then how does this connect to digital product passport? When I talk about DPP, it's the actual information carrier, the hardware that I'm talking about. And as you probably know, there are two main technologies that has been envisioned for the information carrier or the information transfer. So the first category is the direct visual indicator, a QR code or a barcode, where you kind of scan it, or you can maybe use your mobile phone, just capture it optically, and this will take you to a website or some database. This has the advantage that it's very inexpensive. You just need a normal print, basically. It's widely used, but it has the disadvantage that you need a line of sight scan. You need to be able to see the label. So it needs to be sitting somehow outside of the product. And then it's also both not protected from tampering, and it's also not protected from damage over time. It's also a problem in logistics. If you have hundreds of products that you want to scan, or maybe it's for end-of-life handling, then you need this label to be visible in all the products. Instead, we are promoting wireless communication solutions, so RFID or NFC or similar Bluetooth low energy devices. Here you have a little bit more complexity, so then it's actual electronics, but you can do wireless bulk readouts and reading. So you can have hundreds of thousands of devices in a box, and you can still scan all of them. But this opens up for new possibilities. We think, why stop there? So if the basic step and the cheapest step is the barcode or QR code, today RFID tags are used for many different applications, but we would like to see this taken to the next step. Can we integrate some kind of intelligence into these DPP labels? We have worked in previous projects where we had different type of sensor loggers. So for example, for temperature or humidity or stress or impact. It can be for things like precious packages being delivered. We had one project, for example, with Doctors Without Borders, where they were sending vaccines to Africa. And they needed to know that these vaccines had not exceeded a certain temperature. So then we developed a temp logger that could show if they had gone above a critical temperature and for how long in that case. And this was really important because if they even suspect that these vaccines have gone over a certain temperature, then they need to discard all of them. But this indicator would actually save them a lot of vaccines because they could show that no, it was actually for short enough time that it didn't exceed the critical temperature. And this could come into many different sectors. We have talked a lot to the construction and furniture industry. They would like to track moisture as a key indicator. And they would also like to be able to store information in a DPP-like tag. So of course, there's the official information that should be off hands by the user, but you could also imagine having supplementary information. The construction company that we talked to, they would like to have a kind of memory inside of the house of how different processes were done during construction, that later for renovation work, then you can access this. And then if you can also have this kind of sensor data, have there been moisture exposure, how has the temperature been fluctuating over time, that could tell you a lot about the materials and how they should be disposed or if they can be reused. Here are some examples of the demonstrators that we have been working on. What you see here is a fully printed DPP label, which we have combined with a electrochromic display. It's like a very simple on-off display, which in this case shows an indicator, which could be for anti-counterfeit purposes, for example. So instead of having like a hologram or watermark, there you can have an electronic verification that this is a real DPP stamp. And it also, of course, has the antenna. We work mostly with NFC antennas instead of RFID, but that is only for demonstration purposes because it's easier for us to show the functionality directly because we can tap it with a phone, but it could just as well be an RFID antenna instead. What's interesting here is that we're also showing that this label, the power needed to switch this display, it's being transferred only wirelessly. So there's no battery needed for this, which also makes it a lot cheaper, and also you don't need to change any battery, makes it smaller, sleeker. So the next step will be to use this energy that you can capture from the antenna to drive the whole sensor system. So the sensors have not yet been implemented, but it's the next step in our development. And here I think we had just a little animation of the different layers that goes into making this device. And we can work with many different substrates. Here is an example of antennas being produced on paper. We can work on directly on wood, but it doesn't have to be bio-based. It can also be conventional materials like plastic, TPU if you want it to be elastic, and so on. Yes, and I think this I have already spoken about. So yes, we see a lot of different possibilities that can enhance the value of the products that you are adding the DPP label on. Like already mentioned, you could maybe say something about the history of the product, so you can choose if it should be discarded or if it should be reused. If you combine both RFID and NFC, then it becomes both better for logistic purposes, but also maybe for the end user, because the end user will maybe not have possibility to read RFID, but everyone has an NFC reader. So then you will also give the more information to the end user. Anti-counterfeit, we already mentioned. It's going to be important that you can trust that the DPP labels are showing the right information. And basically anything we can make a sensor of, you can track some parameter of the lifetime. So like already mentioned, temperature, moisture, strain, vibrations, you name it. And that's where I would like to have your thoughts eventually also. So my question to you is, what would you do with a DPP carrier that doesn't just store data, but that can sense its environment, that can maybe process information, basically a small brain going along with the product? What are the possibilities here? Because we know materials and we know electronics, but we don't have the full picture of how this technology could be used in the future. So this is where we hope that you can help us fill in the blanks. I think that was my last slide, just one last view showing our whole team here at Norrköping. So thank you. And I think I leave over back to you, Tatiana.
Yes, it's a very transdisciplinary team, Jesper, in Norrköping, right? And the last two slides is just maybe for those guests here who maybe don't know much about digital product passport. Just a reminder that for certain types of product categories, also intermediate products as they called, like iron, steel and aluminium, There are already agreed deadlines when the so-called delegated acts for this type of products and intermediate products will enter into force, will be published. So it's just, this time it's just around the corner. And the last slide, it was also that it's not only eco-design regulation on the next page that is in focus when we talk about DPP, but it's also other types of legislations. For example, you have it there on the next slide, the battery regulation, which requires DPP. It's a toys directive. It's construction regulation and so on. So DPP is entering basically all those different application areas, and pretty much soon. And with this presentation, of course, it's a call to action. Let's cooperate. Let's drive this change together with all our relevant competences that complement each other. So thank you so much. And I hope it was inspiring, interesting, especially Jesper, your question, what would you do with a DPP carrier that doesn't just store data, but senses and responds as well? So that was a real kind of question to think about. So thank you so much from both of us, and over to you, Eva. If we maybe have any questions in the room.
Should we turn off the recording then, Tatjana?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you once again. Let's stop the recording now.